Welcome to the weird world of steam bending. Steam bending is the act of bending wood using only heat and water. Now, I have never done this before, but we're going to figure it all out during the process of building this bermed drop. This is just a crappy SketchUp model to go off of, but you get the picture. It rides like a shark fin, but looks like a berm with the end cut off. The location we'll be building this at is the little town of Steelville. Otherwise known as the floating capital of Missouri, if you like to lazily float around all day in the river, look no further. And as of last year, if you want to take a few laps at the mountain bike park, that's an option too. Thankfully, a small group of local mountain bikers convinced the town to invest in building a mountain bike park. They built 5 downhill flow trails that are all super fun, but now that a year's gone by, they want to add a couple more trails, and that's where I come in. Along with fellow builder Zach Milner of Stray Trails, we'll be building a black diamond flow trail named Surfs Up. I'll be constructing 3 wooden features and posting a new video every Sunday about them. That means if you're watching this right now, then next Sunday I'll have another video out at the same exact time. So keep your eyes peeled. And now that you're brought up to speed on everything, let's get into building the steam bent berm drop on Surfs Up. If you watch this channel, then you already know I like to build my features with wood I can find near the job site, which thankfully cedar trees are almost always available. I gather and process cedar whenever I can because not only is it rot resistant, but these trees are one of the more invasive species in Missouri, so you can find them almost everywhere and they grow back very quickly. The steps to process wood for use on projects always goes as follows. Cut them down.
There it goes. Come on, baby. Yeah! Yeah! Woo!
Delimbing. Strip them so bugs like this don't eat the sapwood. Then cut them into specific lengths or slices for the feature. Some of these will be used as posts and others will be used as braces. To saw the braces, I take a laser and draw a straight line down the log. Then I take my chainsaw and cut directly down the middle. Lastly, I just have to take the wood and get it to the job site. Lucky for me, I got this new log dolly thing that has saved my back so much pain, and it allows me to pick up much larger, heavier logs than I normally can. Once the lumber was processed and moved, I got together with Zach to figure out exactly where this thing was going. Luckily, Zach had already built the trail up to this first feature, so he knew exactly where he wanted it to go, and we were able to mark out where the post needed to sit pretty quickly. And with the markings down, Zach then dug me 2 rows in the dirt so that I could start to pour my concrete bases in the ground. For each base, you start by clearing out a flat spot. Then I cut my sonotube, place it in that spot, and then add some rocks and dirt to hold it in place and to keep the mix from pouring out of the bottom. Next, we get out the concrete, which I clearly got a lot of, but I've learned you'd rather have too much than not enough. To mix it, you pour a bag or 2 into a container, add some water, and then mix thoroughly. You don't want it too soupy, but you don't want it too crumbly either. If you're seeing water after mixing it, then you probably have too much. And after shoveling the concrete in, I'll go ahead and place my anchor bolt. Since we're dealing with wet concrete, I can use these L-shaped bolts that hold well once the mix sets. And a final touch I like to do is screeding. This is simply leveling the concrete off on top with a flat edge using a back and forth motion. This just makes the top of the bases look a little nicer, and the next day I'll come back and install the post bases on the bolts. Once the bases are ready, I breathe a sigh of relief because it's time to work with wood. Definitely the fun part for me. In order to butt our wood onto the concrete, I simply shave up the bottoms of the logs to fit in the post bases. Once they're shaved, you stick them up and screw them in. With the post up, you can start to envision the shape, but I like to run a string line so that I can make sure everything looks right according to my measurements and my eyes. Once I get the string where I want it, I'll make some marks and start putting up my crossboards to match that angle. Since we're steam bending though, we can't simply stick one board up. We need to find how far down the deck boards are going to bend and create a Y-type cross brace intersecting there. Finding this intersection is pretty tricky and takes a lot of mental visualization and patience, especially because this shape isn't a perfect circumference all the way through it. Instead, we're doing what's known as the Fibonacci Spiral. It's a curve that gradually gets tighter as it's turning in. So, not only does the turn get tighter, but the boards will start to bend at more of an angle by the end of this as well. Now, there's two ways to construct this shape. The first way is start with a blueprint with every single measurement accounted for. The second way is to eyeball it. I'll let you guess what I did. The last piece of the puzzle before we got to steam bending was the runner boards. For this, I laid them flat to give me more room to run screws in and so that the finished boards would sit more flush with the cross boards. And with those all up, it was finally time to start steam bending, which I have to say, I was nervous as hell to start doing. Okay, here we go. Gonna try and steam bend the first boards. Let's see what happens. I really wasn't sure if this was gonna work out or not, because if you know anything about steam bending, you'll know it's normally done with boards that are less than an inch thick. Well, in this case, we're bending 2-inch thick boards. But it went totally fine. Looks great. At least the first few anyway. So how do you steam bend something? Well, to steam bend wood properly, you'll need a source of heat, an enclosed container to boil water in, and a steam box. For fire, I was using an old propane turkey fryer base. My water container was a modified 5-gallon bucket that I attached some pipe fixtures to. One fixture for directing the steam to the box, and another for easily filling it back up with water. My steam box was built out of marine-grade plywood. It's just a simple 8-foot box with a door and holes drilled all over it. Some holes are there for dowel rods I push through to serve as a wood rack on the inside, and the others are there to allow steam to come out. Putting holes on the box is extremely important because it will explode from pressure if you don't have a way for the steam to escape. Once you've got your supplies, you just need to know how long to steam the boards for. Well, the general rule is for each inch of thickness, it gets about an hour in the box. Our wood was 2 inches thick, so I let them steam for 2 hours each, sometimes even a bit longer. To maximize your success, there's two main things that I noticed. And the first is getting wood with as straight of grain as possible. This will decrease the chance of it splitting on you as you're bending. Anytime there was a knot in a board by the spot I was bending, it would almost always split out. And the second thing that's the most important is being fast. The faster you can get that board bent, the better. The temperature of the wood goes from untouchable to mildly warm within a minute, so initiating the bend while it's hot is absolutely crucial. With that in mind, you'll notice I always set up my clamps ahead of time, and I'll even do practice runs to make sure I know exactly what I'm doing so that I minimize that amount of time from the box to getting the board bent. As I worked my way toward the end of the berm, these boards got next to impossible to bend. I was bending them well over a foot at this point, and I was using my entire body to get them down. Listen in for 1 second and you can hear my efforts. Some of these I truly didn't even think would keep bending.
Ain't no way. This ain't happening. No way. There's no way.
But I'd keep trying, and they'd keep bending, so eventually I did get to the end.
I'm done. No more steam bending, I think. Oh my god. I don't ever want to steam bend again.
With steam bending out of the way, I could cruise through some final touches on the feature, like capping off the end with some logs, rounding off any overhung boards, piling a few rocks around the base to cover up the concrete, adding some cross supports, and wedging gaps underneath to keep the decking snug. On top of all of that, we still had one last thing to do before giving this feature a test ride. That was connecting the entrance to the dirt. To do that, Zach and I decided it would be pretty cool to butt some massive boulders up to the curved edge. He had already found one that almost exactly matched the curve of the feature, so we started with that. And what do you know, just like that, we had ourselves a steam bent berm drop. And you know, we gotta test it a little bit. I wanna save all the good riding for a final video that I do of the entire trail, but we can still do a little riding. Well, first, let's say a quick thank you to Bikes Online for sponsoring this video. Bikes Online is my online bike shop. Every Polygon bike I have has come straight from their site, not only super fast, but with 90% of the bike already put together. So, as soon as I have the bike show up on my doorstep, I'm riding it within just a few minutes right out of the box. Bikes Online also stocks loads of awesome bikes, such as Polygon, you know, the best bikes in the world. Not only are the bikes excellent, but thanks to their online direct-to-consumer model, which skips the middleman, you get a heck of a deal on them. On top of that, if you don't like the bikes, who cares? They'll let you return the bike for free in the first 14 days if you don't love it. That's a total full refund, and they even come pick it up for you free of charge. So, if you're like me and you're already thinking about gifts to others or maybe yourself for the holidays, go to the link in my description or bikesonline.com and check out all the awesome bikes they have to offer.
Well, did you think what I meant was riding off it on a bike? I actually meant riding off it with a basketball, which doesn't even make sense, but we're gonna throw a basketball off it. Let's roll this sucker down there and see how it rides. Yeah? Right down the frickin' center. Bye-bye. Right down the center. I'm pretty stoked on this shape. This is by far my favorite thing that I've made. It just looks cool. It's not the biggest, but it's definitely the coolest. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you on the next one.